No, we're not considering that. Canada has a strong and independent justice system. We will ensure that it goes through its proper forces, and anyone who's considering weakening our values or weakening the independence of our justice system doesn't understand the importance of standing strong on our principles and our values.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau reacting to a question about whether Canada should trade the freedom of Meng Wanzhou, Huawei CFO, and a very highly prized prisoner for China in exchange for Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor. Trudeau, of course, saying, no, we're not going to do this. And that is the right move. Let me explain why. Because if the Prime Minister said, you know what, we've got this person that the United States says violated their laws, and a Canadian court has already said that those laws would stand up in a Canadian court and she should be extradited, if we let her go in exchange for Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, then we would be putting every Canadian in a dodgy country at risk of being kidnapped, at risk of becoming a political prisoner. And we don't want to do that. So the Prime Minister did the right thing, and it's the strongest that I've heard him. Now, during his news conference, I got to ask him a couple of questions, including whether he believed there was a link, because the Chinese government has called out Trudeau. They called him out saying the Canadian leader has to make the right decision, meaning let Meng Wanzhou go. But they also say there's no link between her case and those of Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor. Here is how Trudeau reacted to that.
We saw in the very first days after the detention of Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig, Chinese officials highlight that there is an obvious link between the case of Madame Meng in Vancouver being arrested on extradition in our extradition treaty and the detention of 2 Canadians on security charges.
Again, stronger than I've heard the PM in quite some time. Maybe he is turning a corner, but I did ask him, should he have been stronger from the get-go when dealing with this issue, when dealing with the fact that we have 2 Canadians who have been essentially kidnapped by the Chinese government, and while various industries from canola to pork to beef to soybeans have been targeted for economic warfare by the Chinese government.
We understand that as the world's second largest economy, they have a significant amount of economic might and levers, but Canada will continue to stand strong to support our farmers, to support our producers, while at the same time defending the interests of Canadians abroad and in detention in China.
Now, maybe Trudeau is turning a corner. Maybe he's finally starting to see the light of day, or maybe he is just trying to read the tea leaves. Whatever the reason is, the fact is that we need to stand up to China, kowtowing to them, bowing to them, saying that, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir, has not worked. We have not gotten the result that we want, which is Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, 2 political prisoners, 2 people arbitrarily detained, effectively kidnapped by the Chinese regime. They have not been released. Our industries continue to be targeted. Just last week it was lumber, with Chinese officials saying there are bugs in Canadian lumber that is being sent to China. These are all false accusations, but it harms us, and that is their end goal. We need a government that is willing to stand up, and if Justin Trudeau is finally willing to stand up, I'm willing to say kudos to him. I'm still skeptical that he's willing to do that, given all his past acquiescence to China, his policy of appeasement to China. But let's wait and see how he does on this, because we need someone, anyone at this point, to stand up to the dictators of Beijing and say enough is enough.